Hello, I am Joanne Powell-Coffman, and my pronouns are she, her, hers. I am an Associate Dean and a former Department Chair at Iowa State University. Before this site became Iowa State University, it was the ancestral lands and territory of the Pokojay, or Iowa Nation. The United States obtained the land from the Meskwaki and Sauk Nations in the Treaty of 1842. We wish to recognize our obligations to this land and to the people who took care of it, as well as to the 17,000 Native people who live in Iowa today. This is the third and final module that focuses on the visioning process. The goal of this module is to describe strategies to overcome barriers and to achieve key elements of your shared vision. Here, the red arrow shows where we are in the workshop. As a group, you have described aspects of a shared vision, and you have identified important barriers to your collective goals. In this last session, you will work in small groups to develop action plans, to navigate or overcome the barriers, and make progress towards your collective goals. You will continue to use the same methods, allowing time for individual brainstorming, and then taking advantage of commonalities to build consensus. You will keep the ground rules front of mind with a focus on facilitative leadership. So, how do you go from your present state to your desired future state? We will share a tool, the Pulse Action Plan template, to help you map paths forward. I'll share a picture in the next slide. Working through the barriers is challenging, especially if it requires enlisting support from groups that don't yet share your vision. We will share one approach, which we call the Z-scheme method, that can be helpful in seeing the barriers and potential solutions from different perspectives. I know that everyone is tired. You've done a lot of good work this far, but this is very valuable time invested in developing a specific, detailed action plan. This is a snapshot of the action plan template. You will use one form for each goal. You will identify the major barriers and also the assisters. The assisters can be any individual or group or process that you could enlist to make progress towards your goal. Working in small groups, you will brainstorm, share ideas, identify common themes, and prioritize proposed action steps. On the form, you will record action steps with one or a few accountable owners, people who are responsible to make sure that the tasks or action steps are executed by specific deadlines that you'll set. Keep in mind you have described a 5-year vision, so your action plan can be staged over multiple years. It can be helpful if at least one group addresses a short-term goal, that low-hanging fruit that can result in early success and provide some momentum. Most groups will choose to record their initial work on large Post-its or on shared documents and then fill out the template as a final step. The template itself is a great way to record and organize next steps, but other tools may work better for the facilitated discussions that develop the plan. It's important that we are all on the same page and using terms the same way, so we'll use the next couple slides to clarify terms. We've introduced the term action steps, and here we mean clear steps that will be taken to achieve the stated goal. Sometimes the acronym SMART can be helpful when considering how to word your action step or develop your action step. A good action step is specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. We'll also describe owners of each action step. And here we're asking who will take the lead, who will take responsibility for getting it done. The template includes a column for resources needed to achieve each step. These resources might include time, money, equipment or space, training, or administrative support, for example. A timeline is essential for any action plan. Some action steps will take place in the first 3 months. Others will happen in years 2 or 3. In small groups, you'll discuss how to sequence your action steps and how to develop an achievable timeline. Pace yourselves. At this stage, we'll form small groups, each group focused on a single goal. The first thing you're going to do in your groups is to nominate a facilitator and a recorder. Before you get started, we'll quickly outline a strategy that can be really helpful in developing solutions that can advance your goals. Here it is diagrammed as the Z method. The Z method is a structured approach to consider the barrier and potential solutions from multiple perspectives. As scientists, we've been trained to focus on the facts as we know them, but in developing effective and enduring solutions, it may be important to consider how people will feel about any proposed actions or changes. We will go through this problem-solving strategy in the next couple of slides. The first step in the Z method is to ask, why does the barrier exist? You're trying to be factual and to approach this question without judgment. In the second step, the group reflects on the question, how does the barrier affect us? At each stage, the group gives individual participants an opportunity to reflect and to share their individual insights. This slide shows how the first 2 steps in the Z method can allow a group to develop a more holistic description of a barrier and its impacts. The first question, why does the barrier exist, elicits factual or observable information. For example, the barrier may be a departmental policy or practice that was established 30 years ago and was widely considered to be a good solution at the time. The second question, how does the barrier affect us, is an objective reflection of the many ways in which that barrier is currently impacting the department. Maybe it has differential impacts, benefiting some goals while impeding others. The third step is to brainstorm approaches toward removing the barrier. What are some of the options that the group might consider? There's usually more than one potential path forward. Finally, the last stop in the Z method is to ask, how will barrier owners and others react to removal? Here you are considering the potential impacts on others. Going back to our example, if the barrier is part of a long-standing curriculum or departmental tradition, some people may not see it as a barrier. Others may feel that they did a really good thing in constructing it years ago. Barrier removal may require some diplomacy, especially if your group doesn't have complete ownership of it. As you go into your small groups, we encourage you to use the Z method questions to consider major barriers and to brainstorm potential solutions. Use the same methodologies that have worked so well for you in visioning and in barrier identification. Provide space and time for individual brainstorming. The facilitator will work to assure that every group member is given time to share their ideas without judgment. Then the group will find commonalities. There can be uncomfortable moments when the group shares complementary insights or perspectives, so it's important to take a breath and recognize the value of that creative tension. It can be really important information and can lead to synergistic solutions. These are the opportunities to develop holistic approaches and enduring strategies. This slide outlines the next steps. By the end of this session, each group will use the action plan worksheet to develop and document a draft action plan. Number 1 on this list, each group will identify a high priority goal to work on for this session. And the recorder will add it to the top of the worksheet. The second step is to brainstorm assisters, actions, and resources for the stated goal. Provide at least 5 minutes for individual idea generation before coming back together as a larger group. Third, list the barriers that were identified in our last session. Fourth, take turns facilitating the 4Z method questions and documenting responses for the barriers associated with your goal. Fifth, reflect on the information and insights that you have gathered through the Z questions and describe your action steps. Number 6, establish a timeline, a series of target dates. Remember, you have identified goals for 5 years into the future, and there's only so much that you can do in any one semester. You want to capture some short-term wins while also developing a longer-term plan for the big goals. Number 7, identify owners. Here we are using the term to describe the individuals who will accept responsibility for this step. Maybe organizing a meeting, leading a group, or finding resources. Number 8, list the resources that you may need. Now let's get to work. Let's take this next part of the workshop to work in small groups and develop the draft action plans. Each group has been working hard on draft action plans. Now that we have reconvened the large group, each subgroup will share their action plan worksheet. Each presentation will take about 5 to 10 minutes with time for clarifying questions. It's important that we capture and record all of the insights, ideas, and plans that have been generated during this workshop. In the interest of time, we have focused on the goals and barriers that were most highly prioritized by the group, but we want to record all of it. Whether it's 2 days, 2 months, or 2 years from now, you may want to come back to some of this really important work. Please designate 1 or 2 people in your group to transcribe your work today, while all of the shorthand notes still make sense. Important records include voting for the visioning items and barriers, and it's essential that we collect the action plan Excel files. We recognize and celebrate all the great work accomplished in this workshop. We hope that the strategies that were used during the workshop will continue to be helpful to you. The future will bring new opportunities and new barriers. As a department, you will be able to call back to these strategies using team learning and structured group work to identify priority goals and develop action steps.